Okay, this is the Flipping the Class review for The Great Gatsby that we have coming up on Friday. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to review the assessment that you guys are going to be taking. It'll be worth 100 points, and it's set up in a couple different bases, which are true-false, as well as matching, or and multiple choice. So let's start off with, The Great Gatsby was written by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the action of the novel, it takes place in 1927. Gatsby, even though he is one of the main characters of the novel, he's not necessarily a flat character, but he does not change in a sense of who he is and his dream and his desire of Daisy. In this novel, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg is looking over the Valley of Ashes, and it is his eyes that act as the eyes of God during that time. Now, other main characters, Daisy Buchanan, she originally comes from a wealthy family in Louisville, and Nick Carraway is her cousin, or second cousin anyways, and he is drawn over to the New York side because he's fascinated by the rich, although he is also repelled by them because he sees rich people mostly as selfish individuals, but all of the activity that surrounds them and the money and such is still an appealing thing. And when Gatsby and Daisy become lovers when they first meet, Daisy originally was going to be with Gatsby. However, when Gatsby went to the war, she agreed to marry Tom Buchanan. And her friend, which is at that time, which was going to be Jordan Baker, she was there to witness part of that. Now, Myrtle Wilson is an individual who is in her 30s, and she is not what you would classify as the most skinny, attractive, young-looking individual, but she is someone who is more of curvy and is having an affair with Tom. Now, Daisy knows about Tom and Myrtle, even though she's never met Myrtle. She knows that he's having an affair with somebody. She just doesn't know who. Nick, on the other hand, rents a house in West Egg, Long Island. It's less fashionable than East Egg, meaning that East Egg is where all the real glamorous, ritzy, rich people live, and West Egg is kind of like that other side of the thing. In an argument, while they're in town, Tom hits Myrtle and breaks her nose over an argument over her saying Daisy's name over and over again. In the story, Gatsby, of course, we know, inherits his wealth from his benefactor, Dan Cody. That's how he basically gets started in this whole thing. And then he uses that money that he inherited from him and goes to work for Mayor Wolfheim. Daisy, even though she remains constant in, that she has loved Gatsby, the bottom line is that Gatsby wants her to admit that she's never loved Tom, and the fact remains that that's not true. She has loved both of them, which is kind of a shocker to Gatsby. Nick, of course, begins a relationship with Jordan Baker. However, he never fully gets deeply in love with her, never plans to marry her. He more or less just simply is dating her at that time, and she's interested in him as well. Tom, of course, sees Daisy and Gatsby together, and he has to make a decision. Is he going to allow this guy to come in and take his wife, and him go with Myrtle, or is he going to put an end to it? And so he decides to give up Myrtle to go for his wife. George Wilson, of course, kills Gatsby because it's not because Tom has told him that Gatsby was Myrtle's lover. That was never established in the book, but what was established was that George Wilson went over to the house to talk to Tom, and Tom told him who was driving the yellow car. And Gatsby, of course, his funeral was not heavily attended by people. It was, only 3 people showed up, which was Gatsby, Nick, and one of his attendings who came to some of his parties. Nick basically regards Tom and Daisy as people who, they break things and then they leave them for other people to clean up. He doesn't hate them or think that they're evil. They're just very selfish individuals is what he looks at. Myrtle's sister, Catherine is her name, tells Nick that Tom and Myrtle, they can't get married because Daisy is Catholic and won't agree to a divorce. But the fact is that Daisy's not Catholic at all. It's that's a story that Tom has probably told Myrtle to keep Myrtle from, throwing down that he should leave his wife. When Daisy accidentally when she's driving the car, she's all in a fluster. And when I say a car, she's driving Gatsby's car home. And she accidentally runs down Myrtle Wilson in a kind of like a fated collision. And, Gatsby wants her to stop, but she keeps pushing on and drives on because she's so flustered with the situation. Now, Meyer Wolfheim, he is only one of Gatsby's business associates, but he does not attend the funeral based on the type of business that they do, which is illegal. F. Scott Fitzgerald, the author, he modeled the fictional character of Daisy after his own wife, Zelda, in real life. He kind of mirrored the two. Now, Gatsby, of course, has limitless wealth that we know of from unspecified sources. We know that he's into a lot of different things. We learn that he's a bootlegger and that he's got a bond business going on the side, too. Probably a lot of other dealings that we are not known of, so we don't really know specifically what he does, and it never was officially told. Let's see. Daisy knows Tom's been unfaithful during most of their marriage. We know this because he was unfaithful to her at their very wedding when they went on their honeymoon. He was in a scandal. The narrator of the story, which is really F. Scott Fitzgerald, tells it through the eyes of Nick Carraway. And Nick is actually telling this story in the past tense 5 years after the death of Gatsby. Jay Gatsby believes that the American dream can be bought. Absolutely, and that you can repeat the past. And although Nick disapproves of Gatsby, he never truly hates him or anything. He actually, it's kind of one of those relationships where you know somebody's bad, but you just can't help but like them because of who they are and their commitment and how they operate. Tom doesn't sincerely really love Myrtle. He does love her, but not in the sense that he does his wife. But, he is more than willing to let her go. Again, it was just a situation where I think he had a woman on the side, and he likes the notoriety that he does with that. Daisy doesn't completely and selflessly fall in love with Jay Gatsby. She loves him, but it's not a sincere type of love, and so much so that she's not willing to leave her terrible marriage, really, to Tom to go with Gatsby. Nick, he finally takes a break with Jordan and returns to his beginnings. Okay, in the 1920s, the automobile became the symbol of industrialization and materialism, and in that time, even though it was part of the death of Wilson dies never knowing who Myrtle had been messing with. In a quote, Wilson basically says, "I've been here too long. I need to get away. My wife and I want to go west. She's been talking about it for 10 years. Now she's going whether she wants to or not." And then Jordan Baker was one of those who basically said, he's like, "When I came opposite her house that morning, her white roadster was beside the curb, and she was sitting in it with a lieutenant I'd never seen before. They were so engrossed in each other, she didn't see me until I was 5 feet away," describing the relationship with Gatsby and Daisy. And then, of course, Daisy, when she's in Gatsby's house, blurts out, "They're such beautiful shirts. It makes me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts." Nick, of course, says, "As I sat there brooding on an old, unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. Another quote you'll have to identify was done by Jay Gatsby, where he would say, why, look here, old sport. You don't make much money, do you? And then Jay also said when he's talking to Daisy, she never loved you. Do you hear? Another quote done by Meyer Wolfheim is, I can't forget, as long as I live, the night they shot Rosie Rosenthal there. It was 6 of us at the table, and Rosie ate and drunk all evening. Another quote that was done when questioning Gatsby was says, was Daisy driving? Another quote used was by Tom when he was talking about his racist remarks. Nowadays, people begin by sneering at family life and family institutions. Next, they'll throw in everything overboard and have intermarriages between blacks and whites. Then, of course, Tom continues with when he's telling Nick about the situation of the shooting. I told him the truth. He came to the door while we were getting ready to leave. And when I set him down he tried to force his way upstairs. He was crazy enough to kill me if I hadn't told him who owned the car. All right, remember that Jordan Baker is a golf champion during a tournament, that Gatsby has limitless wealth. You know, Gatsby also is determined to recapture the past, and that Daisy Buchanan knows her husband's being unfaithful. Nick prides himself on reserving moral judgment of people, which he's very good at as far as that goes. Tom believes in white supremacy. Tom's having the affair with Myrtle. Daisy, or I should say Gatsby, always believes that you can repeat the past. Gatsby drives the sporty yellow car. Gatsby's killed by a jealous husband. Myrtle's killed by a hit and run. Some of the words, that will be in this, words that you need to look at is supercilious, which is dealing with pride, arrogant pride and scorn. Extemporizing, to speak or act. Peremptory, which is, urgent or commanding. Erroneous, which is based on making a mistake or an error. Innuendo is when you kind of insinuate something, or you indirectly or make a subtle reference to it. Rivulets is kind of like a small stream, or like, a bead of sweat. Subterfuge is when you are hiding something or you're evading something. A Raja is like a king or a prince. Receptacles is a container that will, hold a device. Denizen is like an inhabitant or resident of a place. Corrugated is to wrinkle or skin on the face. Euphemisms is when you make a mild or indirect vague expression or make an offensive, harsh, or blunt comment. Contingency is when you have something that depends on chance or fulfillment or a condition. Incapable or inexplicable is being unable to be accounted for or explained. Expostulation is to argue or reason with. Traversed is to pass or move over. Corroborate is to make certain or confirm something. Pneumatic is to pertaining air or gases. Provincial is to belonging or peculiar. Incoherent is logical or meaningful connection. Commiserate is to measure or equal. So those are your basic questions, and those were the vocabulary. I will also give you the vocabulary again, today, but on Wednesday. But make sure that you are listening to this. It covers the entire assessment. Thank you, and good luck.